Listen, I was going to the McDonald's on
That's no, I want to say.
and they hands well.
Yes, when I first moved here,
A friend of
say
ours.
that people would correct me. Al, is the main thing. Al.
When she was in
Yeah, we
Texas.
have an Alma, Georgia, just outside.
Well,
Well, we're from Colorado. That's the family thing with me and Jason rented the place. Cause that thing was backing out. I don't know if anybody died. Nobody yet.
That's what ideas that they were doing.
It's always crazy. Oh, what is this? What notes from my neck?
What you can do about it. I know I'm gonna miss those ball games. I'm hoping they change their mind.
Sounds good.
I know. What are you gonna do? It's
So much movement and doing. And that's brought on by our leaders, by our politicians, so need to,
So wait, do you want coffee, Ron?
wait.
Sean, do you want coffee? Sean, you want some coffee? Anybody else coffee? Yes. That's a big one.
From there and other schools. District to elementary and middle. I went back and did 2 or 3 shifts in my teacher.
Four elementary.
Kelly was there. Yeah, she was there.
Different people, yeah, just the one that's able to know. Wonder how they're gonna do the census. It's not really good for people to pass it on. Yeah, get somebody, you did the census before, then you go to the next person. I mean, you can pass on. Cancel that.
No, it's in the Constitution. Yeah. We can move it around and do something different, but we can't cancel it.
Can't cancel it? Can't cancel what? Census.
Am I in the right place?
I mean, I think it even, it's got 10
I don't
years
know.
in the Constitution. Yeah. I think it does.
If I start coughing, y'all, it's allergies. I'm not sick.
They won't kick you out of here. Where have you been?
Home.
Yeah, they had a big flood on the airplane because this lady was sneezing all the time. They got all bent on.
You can't help that. Wait, no.
Can't help it. I got allergies.
Let's call the March 2020 meeting to order. Looks like everyone's present. Has anybody had a chance to look at the February 2020 minutes?
Make a motion to be approved.
I have one one question that I just saw earlier, and I apologize for not getting this in. The
So we have a motion and a second, so let's do discussion.
very minor, but the second page, the last paragraph, where it says 3 campuses are serviced by OG&E and 1 campus served by AOG. Should that be Arkansas Valley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
John, could you work that out?
It also notates where we went into executive session, but I think it's required that we
Yes,
put
we
why,
fixed that.
so I think that was a personnel issue, so if we could modify those. Do you wanna pass as amended, or just wait to pass it with February, March at the April meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
Well, you got a motion in a second, so you need to dispose of it first, right?
Well, we just don't vote on it.
Well, you had a second, so you
So,
need to vote it down.
yeah, so a vote to vote down the motion to approve the February 2020 minutes.
You just need to call a vote, everybody needs to vote no.
That's probably better. Okay. All in favor of not approving the 2020 minutes? February?
You can't do it that
No,
way.
you can't vote.
This is difficult, guys. What are we doing a vote to?
You got a motion in a second, you got to vote on that.
I'm glad we have a city attorney on our. So do we know what we're voting on?
Yes.
Motion to approve, but then vote it down.
All in favor of,
Just all in favor.
all in favor? Any opposed?
No, vote it down.
confused,
Defeat the
guys.
motion.
We want to vote no.
See, we all did it, okay. A vote to approve the February 2020.
Just say all in favor, nobody raise your hand.
All in favor?
Now, all opposed.
Any opposed?
There you go.
Now,
Guys, I'm not sure what we just did there.
motion as amended.
Move to approve the February minutes as amended.
I will second
Second.
that.
Any discussion? All in favor for the right-hand vote? Any opposed?
Sorry, I was not fast enough.
Ms. Ruth, I hope you got all that down. So we had no public comments. I do want to thank Ms. Brammer and the staff at the middle school. They supplied us with food before the meeting, so we got our vegetable beef soup and cinnamon rolls. So we are so thankful y'all did that. I think it's probably the most we've all eaten in a long time, so thank you for doing that. And so that is going to bring us to Greg Arnsdorf. You have a special presentation today.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Greg Arnsdorf, Regional Director with Cognia. Cognia is the world's largest education improvement organization. We're a nonprofit that conducts rigorous on-site reviews of a variety of educational institutions and provide expertise across a range of educational practices, but with a focus on school improvement, assessment, student engagement, effective learning environments, and data use. The Cognia Excellence in Education Award is presented to one individual who has demonstrated unparalleled leadership in promoting and advancing excellence in education. The award seeks to identify those educational professionals who creates a vision, a common vision and mission for higher expectations among students, faculty, and the education community. They demonstrate a record of significant and distinguished contribution to the education profession. They provide a lasting positive impact on student learning and serve as a role model and mentor for students and or future generations of educators. As you know, Superintendent Woolley came to Alma in 1972 as a high school band director and moved into school leadership until his demotion to the central office in 1983. He spent his entire career in the Alma School District, is serving his entire career in the Alma School District, and has been superintendent since 2011. Superintendent Woolley has received the Governor's Arts and Education Award for his transformative vision of the importance of art education into the educational experience Alma students experience here, and where a vast majority of students participate in the arts-related classes and activities offered. A signature of David's vision is the Alma Performing Arts Center, which serves a dual purpose, for the high school's arts programs and as a center for arts programming for the entire Alma community. The center also continues to give back to students through the Alma Education and Arts Foundation Scholarship Program. Arts programming is not the sole focus here in the Alma School District, but it was added to the traditional offerings provided to high school students as an added value to ensure that each student has access to high-quality programs that are important to them in their educational development. Superintendent Woolley stated, "Our goal is for every student from 6th grade up to be involved in co-curricular programs that teaches those life skills of teamwork, time management, and goal setting that make an adult successful." David states, "We believe as a school district very, very strongly that involvement in co-curricular activities are important to students becoming successful adults." It's a pleasure to recognize a visionary leader with the 2020 Cognia Excellence in Education Award for Arkansas, Alma Superintendent David Woolley. Just take 1 second to read the inscription. Leading by example, for leading and empowering your community to ensure that all learners reach their full potential, for creating and initiating change, growth, and innovation to create a world of opportunities for every learner, for pursuing and advancing excellence in education with equity and integrity. Thank you for your exemplary leadership in education, David Woolley.
For those of you that don't know the term Cognia, that's the new name of Advanced Ed. That's just recently, the last few months, happened. And no, I'm not used to saying it myself either. You know, as all of you know, I've been a strong believer and supporter of Advanced Ed, now Cognia, for many years, and I think it helps schools enormously to become as good as they can be, and it has certainly done that for us over time. This award it's not mine. This award is Alma School District's award. It's all of these people's award. It's all of our teachers' awards. I just sometimes get to stand up front. They're the ones that do the work, and you know, we would be nothing. Our students would not be successful without all of these people, and particularly all of our teachers. I'm certainly pleased to accept this on their behalf, but that's exactly what I do, is accept it on their behalf. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
We're going to go to principals' reports. I may have y'all, we've got quite a bit at the end, so we may have y'all hit the high points. Ms. Harris?
Well, primary school just finished what I call our theater tour. We have we went to see Stephen Fife, and then the AMS play, Stuart Little, which was excellent. And then today we saw the Magic School Bus. Last week was Dr. Seuss Week. We every day had a different focus on a different book, and Thursday was Family Night. We had about 150 that attended. Friday was Read Across America Guest Reader Day. Lots of good guest readers, including Coach Horton, and who read Green Eggs and Ham. Is that correct?
His favorite book.
There were just a lot of careers represented there, but we ended on Friday with the Arkansas State Police landed their helicopter. And we brought all the kids out to the teacher parking lot, and then we landed the helicopter. They landed the helicopter in the field, and each class got to go out and look at it and talk to the guys that brought it in, and then they got to have their picture taken there too. So that was a highlight of the week.
Yeah. Mr. Warnock?
Been a great month this last month. First of all, I want to mention that I want to echo, we've enjoyed the performances at the Performing Arts Center, not only middle school, but also Magic School Bus, and that was funded by the Alma Education and Arts Foundation. So it's a neat opportunity for our kids to get to see performances like that. Our Quiz Bowl team placed third out of 14 teams. Very proud of them. And I also want to recognize one of our students, Caroline Richardson, was nominated and then selected as one of 12 students in the whole state, statewide award, Diamond Award, and it's 4 students that are involved in alternative learning environments around the state. And we had a great time watching her receive her award at the state capitol. And I had a great time looking around at some of these kids that have been involved in ALEs from younger years, and they were almost ready for graduation. A lot of fun.
Mr. Wolf.
Competition season continues. The choirs competed in their regional concert assessment and received superiors and excellence in their groups. We had 7 students who placed at the DECA SCDC competition, including 3 who actually qualified as 8th graders to compete at the international, competing against high schoolers. Very proud of them. Robotics put on a little inter-school match with intermediate school at the end of February. They had the Fort Smith Bomb Squad robotics demonstration, and the kids got to kind of compete for their parents who may not have been able to make all their competitions, and it was a great way to end their season. Miss Matheny and Miss Dooley do a great job with those teams and get those kids fired up. Regional History Day, March 2nd, we had 16 students who placed there who qualified for the state competition. Bands had their regional concert assessments and received superior ratings on all their categories. And it was mentioned, middle school put on their play, Stuart Little, last week, and it was excellent.
Mr. Kirkendall.
Well, we have just like Mr. Wolf's report, with all of our, a lot of competitions, a lot of our teams have been in action, robotics, DECA choir and band, just like he has reported. History Day, same thing. We have state coming up April the 11th. As you're going to hear in a little bit later, I know from Mr. Woolley, that we have state science fair, state history day, international DECA that are at risk of not occurring. A lot of things are being canceled, so I know he'll probably address that, which also includes our spring sports that have started with track, baseball, softball, soccer, that are also in a possible jeopardy of not continuing, but they've been real successful so far. Cheer tryouts next week, outside the cheer banquet tonight, and there'll be a couple of us will be leaving early from the board meeting so we can attend that at 7 o'clock. We had pre-AP, AP and concurrent night recently. I think Mr. Brisher was there. We had a real good turnout. I thought it was really good for especially for our incoming 9th graders from the 8th grade to kind of see what those AP and concurrent classes consist of. We have parent night also for incoming 8th graders next Monday night for a similar reason, to just kind of indoctrinate them on what they can expect at high school. So we're very busy.
Thank you. Let's go to the consent agenda. 2 items in that. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor? Any opposed? It carries. Superintendent's report.
I think everybody knows we're 10 days away from the beginning of spring break, week of March 23rd. It's maybe more significant this year than it has been in the past, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. This may turn out to be one of those years that a situation that, you know what, 10 or so years ago, legislature passed a law setting when spring break is. So all schools in Arkansas have spring break at the same time. Colleges don't have to; they don't fall under the law, but they all do because it only makes sense. So all schools in Arkansas are going to be out of school that week, and that may turn out to be a really good thing this year. I want to mention one more thing that's not on the agenda. I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Tony McMurray passed away Wednesday. His services are Saturday morning at 10 o'clock at Concord Baptist Church. We, of course, many of us will be there. It's been just over a year from when he first got sick. It's been a difficult year for his family, for a lot of us, because he was certainly a very important part of our program.
Any old business added? New business?
March is the month in which we reemploy the teaching staff, the licensed personnel. You have the list of each campus's recommendation by their principal. As I said just a minute ago, we wouldn't be what we are without that group of people. We're very fortunate to have them, and I'm certainly very pleased to recommend that their contracts be renewed.
Move to renew the reemployment of licensed employees.
Second.
All in favor with a right hand vote? Any opposed?
On their behalf, let me thank you for your support. That's pretty meaningful that, to them that they get to come by. If you look at item E, I sent this information to you several days ago. We'd like to recommend Mr. Ernest Presley, and if you slip and call him Elvis Presley, he will answer. This will complete our coaching staff that's, of course, been in a bit of a state of flux now for a while as we've got all of the new pieces in place. Coach Presley has quite a record, had quite a nice career, done very well everywhere he's been. When I asked him, why Alma, and he's got an awfully good position right now. And he said, it's just the reputation of Alma. I said, who wouldn't want to work at Alma? And that was kind of his answer. So I'd like to recommend him for employment as a senior high defensive coordinator.
We'll go into executive session before we get any more items on the employment to discuss the employment issue.
Yes, so 617, and it's an employment personnel?
Yes.
I wonder, do you think if we could do you want to do 4 and 5? Do you have any problem with that?
I have no issue with you.
I know that there's probably a lot of parents that want to, live streaming, that may want to hear about 4, and then we can go in case there's a person.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, let's,
I would agree with you there on number 4 especially.
So if we hadn't started our executive session, I move to rearrange the agenda to cover item number 4 under new business.
And 5.
That's followed by 5, yes.
thank you for that. There's a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor with a right hand vote? Any opposed? Mr. Woolley, why don't you take up number 4? Next.
Well, it's been an interesting day. It's been an interesting last few days. And, I know everybody watches the news and reads the newspaper just like I do. When this all began in the world some months ago, who knew where it was going to lead? And you can still make that statement. Who knows where it's going in the next day, week, month, 6 months, whatever.
To clarify for anybody that may be watching, because I know a lot of people have asked me.
Okay.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, coronavirus.
Coronavirus
I'm sorry.
is what we're talking about.
We've kind of been just sitting, watching, and waiting. I guess all of Arkansas has, because there hadn't been any cases here. And really, honestly, up until a couple of days ago, it had been really fairly quiet nationwide, I think. There hadn't been much talk about it. It seemed to kind of just blow up out of nowhere yesterday, and then even more so today. In Arkansas, the first case that anybody knew of, I guess I better say, in Arkansas was yesterday in the Pine Bluff area. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up. If you'll flip over to item G, last thing in the agenda. The first page here is, and you may have seen this in last Friday's online newsletter, email newsletter. This is what I wrote that was in the newsletter last week. This was just simply information as of last Friday, as it says what we know, what we were doing, what we were preparing to do. It was just, I thought we needed to let particularly our parents know that we were paying attention, we were watching, reading, asking, and knowing that if this did come our way, that we would need to be prepared to address it. I wanted to try to let our community know that, while at the same time not alarming anybody without getting anybody from feeling that, oh gosh, this is a panic situation. And then if you'll turn to the next page, which this is the governor's proclamation. And if you'll look at page 2 of that, which is the last page of the book, the highlighted part is what is really most important to us. As part of the proclamation, the governor said that the Secretary of Health, in consultation with the Secretary of Education, shall have sole authority to close public school campuses throughout the state for reasons related to COVID-19 or the coronavirus. So what that did as part of this resolution is put the state in control of when schools do and do not close. We could not close school on our own. We could not keep school from closing if they directed us to. Now, we could obviously talk to them, try to change their mind, either way, no matter if we thought necessary. But this resolution gave the state that authority. So with that authority, after the case in the Pine Bluff area yesterday, they closed all the schools in Jefferson County, which is where Pine Bluff is. There's just 5 or 6 different school districts in that county. Then this morning, there were more cases that were presumptive positives. And that's the term they're using. It's presumptive until they get response, and they send their results to CDC in Atlanta and get CDC saying, yes, you were correct. That's why they're using the word presumptive. There's no doubt that they are, but that's why they're saying presumptive. There were 4 additional cases this morning in that group. One was in, I know where 3 of them are. I do not know where the 4th one was. It was a duplicate of one of the 3, same county. Pulaski County, which is of course Little Rock, Saline County, which is Benton and Bryan, and Grant County, which is Sheridan. So based on those occurrences, that there was at least one case, and in some one of those 3 cases, 2 cases in those counties, the state directed all the districts in those schools to close this afternoon. I don't know for a fact, but I assume that's effective tomorrow. I don't think they actually closed the school midday and sent students home. I assume that's effective tomorrow. The way that was worded, and I'm going by what I heard on the governor's press conference this afternoon. I haven't seen this in writing. For a 2-week period. I suspect that, that obviously realistically is tomorrow, next week, and then we're in spring break. Now, what will happen at the end of spring break is anybody's guess. Whether they'll go back or whether that'll be extended, don't know. Whether there will be other counties, new cases tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday, and more schools directed to close, your guess is as good as mine. It appears to me, and this is just my opinion, that their benchmark is 1 case in the county, and they're going to direct the schools in that county to close. That's what's happened the last 2 days, so that's why I say that. I don't know that that's their thinking, but that's what it appears has happened. We have been talking, administrative staff, we've been talking about this for days, and honestly, for probably 10 days, every day, I felt like it was becoming a little bit more likely that we would end up closing. And I still feel that way. Every day, I feel like it gets a little more likely that we'll end up closing for some period of time. We met this morning for a couple of hours to get very specific about what does that mean if we close? What are we going to do? How are we going to have school? Lots of things to consider there, lots of moving parts, obviously. The overwhelming majority of our teachers teach every day, using a product called Google Classroom. And it's part of Google. It's free to us. It doesn't cost us a thing to use this, but it is a wonderful platform. It lets teachers and students communicate electronically very seamlessly. Teachers can put their assignments into their Google Classroom. Every class, if I'm a 7th grade math teacher, I have a Google Classroom for each of my classes. It lets the teacher put the assignment in there. It lets the teacher, if they wanted to, upload a video of themselves lecturing or explaining. Students do their assignments in Google Classroom, whether that's a worksheet or whether it's a paper they need to write, and that's the way they submit it. If it's a longer-term project where a student is writing a paper and the teacher's critiquing it and sending it back for more work, that all happens electronically. Students can share, if they're doing a project together, they can all see that same document that they're working on, and there's notes in red that show that this student did this and this student did that. It's a wonderful platform. So with all that said, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference with Google Classroom, whether they're in the same room or halfway across the county from each other, or halfway across the world from each other for that matter, as long as everybody has internet access. So that will continue to be, assuming we do get directed to close. I'm obviously making that assumption that that's going to happen sometime in the future. That's the way we will conduct most of our educational business. Now, you can't do that in everything. You know, it's a little hard to have track practice on the internet. There's some things that just kind of have to fall through the cracks. There's no way to do. And there's not really anything we can do about that. But core academic classes will go on with very little difference from what we did today and yesterday. We're fortunate that we've already been doing that for, how long have we been using Google Classroom with somebody?
6 years or so.
Yeah, several years. It's not new. Not every teacher did it at first, but pretty much everybody does now.
How does that work that's assuming everybody has internet and a computer?
That's where I'm headed. Not everybody does. There's a couple of different layers of that. Some people may have internet service through their cell phone and their phone plan. That's not really internet service, not for this purpose. Some people have nothing. We know that there are those of our students that have nothing at all at home. Quite often that's an economic issue. So what we are also going to do, and ask our teachers to do, is prepare all these lessons also on paper for those students that don't have the ability to do them online. And would it be, the perfect world is everybody would be able to do it online, but that's not where we are. We don't have that. So our teachers will be preparing those lessons on paper. I'll get to this in a minute. As to begin with, if the first day or two, they're going to hand them those assignments while they're sitting in class. I'll come back in a minute to what happens if this is the second week or the third week, heaven forbid, the fifth week. The other thing we're prepared to do, many of our students may have internet service at home but don't have a good device to work on. Maybe all they have is their phone. We own a whole bunch of Chromebooks, and we're going to, for any student that wants one, we'll send one home with them and for the duration of this. That's no problem at all for us to do, and we will do that for any student that would be helpful for. We are in the middle of, we started today and we'll finish this up tomorrow, we are asking every student to fill out a Google survey as to what their internet status at home is. They've got high-speed internet with a desktop computer. There's several different choices that they can choose, all the way down to I don't have anything at all, and everything in between. So we will know what each student by name, what their status is, and we can customize or call them in and say, hey, do you need a Chromebook? Or it looks like you don't have anything, or you're going to need paper copies of assignments. So we'll be able to address all of that, and we will get that done. They're supposed to finish the survey tomorrow if they didn't get it done today, and we'll be able to very quickly compile that and know where we are and know what we need to do. One of the other issues that is of great importance is a whole lot of our students rely on school breakfast and school lunch for most of their food, and we're very cognizant of that. There are two different federal programs whereby they're normally intended for summer use, but the United States Department of Agriculture has issued a blanket exception. They did this day before yesterday, I think, letting schools use this summer program now because of this. Basically, it's the very same program we use in the summer with the bookmobile. It's what lets us feed children free in the summer in our bookmobile service. It will let us provide breakfasts and lunches to any of our students that wants one. They don't have to be currently free lunch to qualify for this. this. Any student that wants one can participate in this. What we plan to do, we've got this in the works. We were thinking, how do we distribute that? How do we get them to them? We've got quite a large number of churches in our school district. And of course, all the churches, by the nature of what they are, they want to do these kinds of things and want to be helpful and are always a great partner to us. So we're going to deliver breakfasts and lunches to the churches. And they're going to be kind of a meeting spot, if you will. Families, students, parents, whatever that can come to the church and pick it up, we're going to ask them to do that. If that's not possible because they don't have a car or the child's old enough to be left at home but it's too far to walk to the churches are going to take on and help us by taking the food to them. We don't have every bit of those details worked out yet, but we just about do. The churches were very responsive to our request today, can you do that? And they just immediately said, we'd be delighted to help with that. So that's the way we will do that. If we have students that need paper assignments, that's how we'll get it to them, is along with delivering the food. We probably are going to deliver breakfast and lunch at the same time. We're not going to make a breakfast trip and then go back and make a lunch trip. Here's today's lunch and tomorrow's breakfast. We haven't decided, or we may even do that not every day. We may take on Monday, we may take 2 lunches and 2 breakfasts and then go back on Wednesday. We'll play that as it works out. Not every student's going to want to participate in that. We know that. We have not asked them yet if they think they will, but we will be getting that information from students and parents. Do you think you are going to want us to bring you food? Some families won't. Many families won't. But we will certainly serve everybody that asks us to. And we will always have extras in case somebody shows up unannounced. We think this is all going to work as well as you could ever hope for something like this to work. There'll be some hiccups, of course there will, we know that, in something like this. But we're certainly prepared to address them when they occur and do whatever we need to do. These days will count as days of school. Again, who knows where we're going to be a month from now. But we don't have any thought right now that, let's say we miss 2 weeks of school in the next month, we don't have any thought right now that we would tack 2 weeks more onto the end of the calendar. These will be days of school. You've heard us talk before, we haven't talked about it much, but a few years ago, the state enacted a law called AMI, Alternate Methods of Instruction. That's what this is. It was really enacted for snow days, but this is the exact same thing. I'm going to record later tonight, I'm going to record a video message to all of our staff and send that out probably late tonight, and I will certainly send it to you all too. And just, here's what all this is, here's what we're doing, here's what we need for you to do, all of that information. One of the things I will assure them of is nothing about this changes their employment status or their pay. They get paid just the same, nothing at all changes about that. Our teachers will be working. Now they can work from home in their pajamas because they're going to be working online with their classes. We will need some of our bus drivers to help with the delivery of food. We will need some of our maintenance people to do, we'll need our food service people preparing the meals that we're going to deliver. But again, they're going to be being paid for it, just as if they were coming to work on a normal school day. To shift gears a little bit, let me talk for a minute about what we started 2 weeks ago thinking about, separate from how do we have school without having school. The whole emphasis nationwide has been minimizing the spread of the virus in all kinds of different ways. Well, when you've got 700 or 800 students, children in a building, they're around each other a lot, naturally. So we always work pretty hard to keep our buildings clean, and particularly in the winter, we pay special attention to cold and flu, try to do some things. But we ramped all that up, intensified our cleaning of the buildings, and then we took an extra step. Travis, we have we have 4 of these machines he's getting ready to demonstrate. we used it for the first time this past weekend. We'll do it again this weekend, and then moving forward, we're gonna do it on the weekends as well as midweek in the evenings. This sprays a disinfectant, a high-powered disinfectant. Now, before anybody asks, it's certified safe for humans. You get it on you, you get it, you know, if you, to prove the point the other day, I had him spray my hand and I licked my fingers. You know, it's odorless. 30 minutes after you leave a room, you can't smell it, see it. You can't tell that it was ever done.
So we went to every hard surface, doorknobs, anything, desktops, and the principals had the laptops opened up, Chromebooks. So we went and sprayed across even the keyboards of the laptops. And we went through each school district, each school, and it took approximately 2 to 2.5 hours on each school. But the bottom line is you just go by and you spray anywhere that it does, that we touch on a daily basis, and we go through the whole school. So again, like you said, there's no, I mean, it doesn't taste real good, but it's safe. But we also went everywhere anybody touched. So we just went across, and what it says on here on hard surface is like 5 seconds to catch on. And Brian, wasn't it 30 seconds for soft surfaces? If you see how that's wet, you wet it down if it's a soft surface, so it'll sink in a little bit more. So we did that. We've got, it takes about 3 gallons per school, and we did that. Like we said, we've done it once so far. We'll do it again this weekend, and then we're going to do it again Wednesday and Thursday. But again, we really believe that this is helping. This is the same machine that the athletic department had a year ago. A year ago, Coach Lockridge and the football team had staph infection and in the locker room area. And after they got this and did it on a normal basis, Curtis did it on a normal basis weekly, and there was no more ever any issues of staph in that area. So this does not only kill corona, but it'll kill staph, MRSA, and a lot of other bacteria and stuff. So this is very safe, but it's very good for a lot of other reasons instead of just what we're doing now. So this is a great investment. We had one, now we have 4. It's a great investment, not only for this situation, but we're going to do it on a normal basis in flu season and then after football season and during football season for helmets and shoulder pads and all that. So this is not just an investment for now. This is a great investment for the long term of our safety of our kids. So
we think it will really help the health of our students and therefore the attendance of our students in cold and flu season. And we plan to do this during cold and flu season from now on. I would also add we've done, not using this machine, but a very similar process on all our school buses, using a disinfectant aerosol on all of our school buses, and we will continue to do that regularly also. So, you know, do I wish we weren't having to do all this? You bet you. But given that we are, I think we've done all the right things. I think we've got ourselves and our staff and our students in as good a position as we possibly can, and you know we'll go forward with this, and we'll see where we are at the end. I don't think it is out of the question. Now, hear me carefully. I am not predicting this. I'm not saying I think this will happen, but I don't think it's out of the question that sometime in the next day or 2 or 3 or 4 might be our last day of school for this school year. I certainly hope that's not the case, but I think it could be. On a related note, and again, if you've been watching the news and listening, all kinds of events are being canceled all over the country. The NCAA basketball tournament was completely called off this afternoon. Not going to play it at all. The finals of the Arkansas high school basketball tournament started today and ended today. They're not going to finish it. We have not been given this yet, but we have been told that it's coming, is the suspension of all Arkansas Activities Association sponsored events and activities for the rest of the school year. Now, that's not out yet, but that's what we've been told to expect in the next day or so. And, you know, obviously we're going to follow all of that to the letter, whether it comes from Activities Association or from the state. You can imagine how much correspondence we've gotten from health officials and education officials, both on the state and national level. They are all doing an excellent job of keeping us informed. We're not, I've been getting an email from the Department of Education 3 times a day for the last 4 or 5 days. Every time anything changes, they let us know what the newest information is. They've given us, doing things like this came from their advice, not this specific thing, but doing that sort of thing. The information, that the simple little things that was I put in that newsletter article last week about, covering your, sneezing into your elbow, and, not shaking hands, washing your hands well. The simple little stuff is, of course, things that they strongly encourage and recommend, and obviously we do too. It's uncharted territory. I can certainly have no problem saying that. This is my 48th year in this business, and this is the most disruptive thing that has ever occurred in my time. But obviously, I say it all the time, and I believe it, and I mean it. There's nothing more important than the health and safety of our students. And we're going to continue to follow all the advice we're given, whatever that is, and do the very best we can, while at the same time doing everything we can to continue our students' education.
Just to clarify, because I'm going to get asked, Alma School District cannot close itself down without approval. The state
That's
is
correct.
going to do it. And
I suppose we could call them up and say, hey, please close us.
Sure.
But we can't make that decision ourselves.
But it still goes through the state.
That's right.
What's the kids that don't have internet, what's the distribution plan on the paper packet? Should it be an extended time? Is it Bookmobile or something like that?
Well, our delivery of the meals.
Okay.
As we
So it'd
deliver.
be the church and then?
Yeah, same way.
Okay.
Yeah. That, we've got to be very diligent about that. That would be easy to let fall through the cracks. So that's something that we'll have to be very diligent about. We're also going to certainly ask our teachers, this is not playtime. This is not recess. This is not a snow day. This is school. And we want to have just as rigorous educational program this way as we would if this wasn't happening. And we're going to really push that hard. We're going to monitor that. We're going to be sure that happens. I'm not saying that students are going to sit in front of their laptop 6 hours every day. I'm not that naive.
Oh, I'm not going to let mine do that. They're going to do that.
But we're going to expect work. They're going to get graded. Those grades are going to show up on their transcript at some point in time.
Will the sign-up process for meals start now? I mean,
Yes.
I think it's just almost a situation where we
Yep.
could get something tomorrow that.
You're exactly
coming
right.
back.
No,
So, I mean,
immediately.
tomorrow it is.
Immediately. Immediately. Because, you're right. Who knows? We may get a phone call at 10 o'clock in the morning saying this is your last day. I mean, that could happen.
And we will make sure every student is personally asked for a parent. It's just such a time where the lines of socioeconomic, of kids slipping through the cracks.
We're
for a few weeks with
very
no-
cognizant of that, and we'll be as thorough as we could possibly be about it.
It's not just that, it's just geography. I don't really get internet at the house.
I was gonna say that too. Some of
Yeah.
our district, we have 500 some of the students that we know
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
other places. So.
If the phone rang at 10 o'clock in the morning,
Oh, don't even say that.
well, no, could parents come get their kids immediately?
Sure. I mean, they can always do that. Sure.
What about, and I hate to ask this, where we had the, back in August or September, the threat that was statewide, and we offered, if you don't come, it's fine, and we had a drop in attendance, but at least until spring break, is that an option that we can do ourselves?
Well, let me answer that question this way. We have been contacted by probably maybe 5 parents already who someone in their household has a compromised immune system and they don't want to take any chances at all, and they said, we would like for our child to stay home right now, and we
Yeah.
said, sure.
Same thing if maybe a kid's got sick or a family member or something like that, if they, I think we make it known if any parent, either
We're-
for their kid's safety or for the school safety,
Yeah.
make that a possibility, if nothing else for the next 6 days.
We are, we're always that way, we want kids in school, of course, we want them in school anytime they can. But I'll go back to what I said and what I continue to say, if it's a safety issue, that trumps everything.
Okay. I
always.
just in case a kid might have missed for who knows what earlier in the year and the days don't add up wherever we end up, that's something we have control
You know,
of.
this is such an unusual situation. All those normal rules and procedures are out the window.
Sure. Good.
Any other questions?
Well, please, you know, as I say to you all the time, if people contact you, encourage them to call their building principal or me. That's what we're here for. We want to answer those questions. We want them to feel comfortable about what's happening. We don't want anybody falling through the cracks. And, you know, we're not perfect. We may mess something up, but we can't fix it unless somebody calls it to our attention. And so, please help us with that as much as you can.
Let's go to item 5, which are facility needs and ideas.
You know, we have kicked around just in informal conversation in the last several months the fact that there's some facility issues that we might want to address. So I put together a PowerPoint that is information about that. You taking my chair away?
Thought you were talking up there.
I'm going to sit down. There's a number of things that we would like to give some consideration to addressing, and this is just a presentation. I would not let you make any decisions about any of this tonight. This is just information. You need to think about it. You need to talk with your friends and neighbors about all of this. We'll need to talk about it again in a future meeting, and then we'll decide if we want to do this. Getting ahead of myself. So, as everybody knows, of course, we began an agriculture facility, our agriculture program this school year without a facility. They are meeting in just a regular classroom right now, and that's working fine for the beginning. But if we want to have a good, functioning, doing everything that other schools do program, we need to build a facility that's designed for that. We have visited in the last month or so, 6 weeks, we've visited 6 different schools that were recommended to us as having exemplary facilities. Some of them were palaces, Cadillacs. Some of them were more like what I think we would want to build. Got a lot of great ideas. Our agriculture instructor went with us on 4 of them. Our architect went with us on several of them. The purpose was to see what does a program need in this day and time. And these were all facilities that were relatively new. They hadn't been built very many years. A good bit of variety. Most of the schools were schools about our size by design because we needed to see what people like us did. And we got a lot of good ideas. Now, again, the whole purpose was just to get ideas, leading toward basically how many square feet are we going to need to build so that we can get some idea of what it's going to cost. You can't do that without some information. We've not designed anything. We don't have a blueprint to show you, here's what it'll look like. Not at all. That'd be way premature to do that at this point. But that's kind of what we think ought to go into it. We just have one teacher in the program right now, but I think we'd be foolish to think that it's not going to grow, and that we will at some point in time down the road add a second teacher. Obviously a shop that's pretty good size, restrooms, storage, all those common things. We know we want a greenhouse. Whether right now or whether sometime in the future, there's highly likely that we would want a barn for animals. And we think that's about 6,000 square feet total. Now, to give you a frame of reference for that, this building that we're in, wall to wall, border to border, is about 4,000 feet. So it'd be about half again bigger than this building. And that's just as a frame of reference. We think that would be about the total size. Until we actually are ready to design it, it might grow a little, it might shrink a little. You know how that goes when you start designing, putting lines on paper. So that's the first facility. to show you, and again, this is not to scale. This is not to say this is exactly what it would be or where it would, what it would look like. This is just to locate it. Sorry. Here's the football stadium. This is the arena, safe room, field house. You see, it's not very plain. You see the white line right here on that parking lot. Right in that area is where we would envision putting this building. You know, right here is a lobby area that goes into the safe room and goes into the field house. We would extend a corridor out this way that would be the access to this building, so that it's just right at the school. It's not, you know, 1,000 feet away out across the parking lot or anything. It's just all right here. I was kind of showing right here. You can see a small section. I was kind of showing the greenhouse. And again, I don't even know that this is the right size for 6. I don't know that that's 6,000 square feet. That's not the point. This is just to show about where it would be size-wise. Again, there's the football stadium. This is the lot west of the football stadium. That's the high school football field. We own all of this land. We own over to this road right here. So anywhere in here, now that's not, that little corner right there is showing a barn building. This is showing what we might want to fence off for pasture, depending on what the needs of the program are. This whole thing could be here. It could be off down here. Again, just kind of indicating this whole area somewhere in here is where a barn could very easily be located. This is West Main Street coming down the hill. Be easy access in here somewhere. You could also access it off this parking lot by building a driveway right here. There's lots of ways to do that. But again, just kind of showing the idea of that's where we could do it. Another thing we'd like to do is a multipurpose student activities center. You say, what's that? Well, it's a big building that all kinds of student groups could use to do all kinds of things in. We don't have one of those right now. We anticipate about that size, basically one big, large, open. And let me tell you, guys, I see some of you writing this down. I've got all of this to hand you. Actually, every one of these slides all printed off to hand you. So what would it be used for? There's the programs that every one of those programs would, without question, use it. Science Fair and History Day would be a wonderful place to set up, have plenty of room, plenty of time to do it, to set up in there. It'd be a great place for Agri to have an animal show. The group that would use it the very most, an opinion, would be ROTC. They drill every day of the world, many times a day, different classes, rain or shine. They would love to have an indoor place like this in bad weather. Our spring sports would all use it, track, baseball, softball. It would be a wonderful place for our robotics tournaments. It would be great for that. Football would probably use it some, and that's what people are going to think it is, but they probably would use it the least of anybody up here. The only time football would use it probably would be in the fall if it's lightning outside during practice time. That's about all the time they can go in there. Our youth sports leagues could use it. Band would use it. Cheer would use it. It'd be a great place to have our weight meet that we have in the spring. So all of those groups we get a lot of use out of it. I really think it'd be one of those things that would be so heavily used that we'd have to have a pretty careful schedule. It wouldn't be just, okay, I'm going to go down there today, not without it being on the schedule because somebody else would probably already be there. It would be a great building for us. It would enhance a lot of our programs a great deal. Of the 64 schools in Arkansas, high schools that are 5A, 6A, 7A classification, of course we're one of those. We're one of the 17 that does not have a building like this. It's become a very standard thing. Van Buren built theirs, gosh, 20 years ago. Greenwood built theirs a little longer than that. It's older than that. Southside and Northside built theirs 5 or 6 years ago, something like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So, you know, schools like us have these kinds of buildings. And it would enhance our programs a great deal. Again, this is a different picture, so it's not exactly the same. There would be the Agri building, here would be this building. That's not the right size, but it would be somewhere kind of like this. We would reroute this road around the back side of the building. We're going to lose some parking here that we would replace over in here, so that we still have that parking. We need that parking in this area, and that would be simple enough to do. Next thing is this building. This building was built in 1980. This building is 40 years old. It's a great building. It's in great condition. Now the interior decor may be a little out of date, but it's a great building. You know, you all heard the joke about the carpet, that we replaced the carpet finally 2 years ago. We replace the carpet every 38 years whether it needs it or not. Getting ahead of myself. When we built this building, we were 1,350 students smaller than we are today. We've grown that much in 40 years. We are subject to a whole lot more requirements from the state in terms of reporting things and doing things and having programs than we used to do. This building was built before the state standards were enacted that we have lived by since the mid-80s. And those standards caused many, many things to change. There are more people that ought to have their office in this building that don't than do. In other words, more than half of our staff that are like us, like me, that ought to be in this building are not in this building. They're elsewhere in facilities in the school district. It would size, this building's 4,000 square feet. We would expand it by roughly 3,600. Again, we've looked at people, numbers of people, jobs, responsibilities to come up with that number. And of course, we don't want a building that's going to be full day one, because I'm sure things are going to continue to change and grow. So we would build some empty space in this building. Not a huge amount, but obviously some. It'd be foolish to build a building that you're out of space when you moved in. Every nook and cranny of this building is somebody's office. We don't have a copy room. Well, we got a little copy room up there. We don't have a file room. Much of our files that we're required to keep are not in this building. And when we need something out of it, we have to go to where they are and go get it and bring it back. Very, very inconvenient, very inefficient. We don't have a, this room that we're in right now is the only place we have to have any kind of a meeting, and there's lots of times that we need more than one at a time, and we don't have that. We would just be much more efficient in our operation. It would just help us do our jobs more efficiently, which results in better learning on our students' parts. Again, this is just illustrating what we might do. This is the drive coming in off the highway. Here's the building, part of it under the trees here. We might go out with wings like this, or we might do something like this, just add on to the back side. That's still a decision to make in conjunction with our architect when we get to that point of exactly what's the best way, most efficient way, most usable way to add on to the building. One thing I didn't mention that I should have a minute ago, many of the people that would move into this building are in the former doctor's office across the street, what we refer to as the annex, where at one time our high school opportunity school, alternative education school was. They would move over here. So what happens to that building? Something we do not have that we desperately need is an early childhood program. You may have heard the term along the way, Arkansas Better Chance, referred to as just ABC. That is a program funded by the state for low-income 4-year-olds. You have to meet income guidelines for the child to be eligible for it. The state fully funds the operation of that program. All the local school district has to do is provide the facility, place to have it. There's two reasons why. What my next slide is. There's two reasons why we haven't done this prior to now. One, the only place we would have had to have put it is in one of our schools, and during all our years of growth, we were pretty nervous about tying up classrooms with this, and then all of a sudden having to have those classrooms for classes that that we were required to add because of growth, because of class size standards. We were really leery about that, and still are for that matter. The other reason is, up until the last couple of years, Alma had a really quite good Head Start program, which, for reasons unknown to me, closed 2 or 3 years ago, as well as there was a private daycare in Alma that operated ABC programs. State private daycares, private operations, if you do it right, can run these also. That private company really is not much interested in doing that anymore, and they've really kind of gotten out of it. They still have a little bit, but not much. So the time is right for us to do this. It would be an enormous benefit for those of our children that, as 4-year-olds, don't get any kind of preschool programming. You know, you go into one of our kindergarten classrooms in the fall, and it's easy to tell the students that were in a good preschool program and those that weren't. You don't have to stay there long to figure out which is who. And generally speaking, it's the children from those low-income families, simply because they don't have the financial resources to send their child to a daycare, that are getting left behind. This would help our children enormously to be able to have this program. That's just a picture of the building across the street. You all know where it is, right over there. That was the former doctor's office. Next item is parking lots. We have a little over 1 million square feet of asphalt, which, when I added that up, did the calculation, I was somewhat astounded by the number, but that's what it is. Most of it was built in 1989, 31 years ago, which anybody will tell you that's longer than asphalt should be expected to last. I say most of it. Some of it's been built sooner, more recently than that, as we've built buildings and changed things and so on. Probably 70% of it, and I'm just pulling that number off the top of my head, is getting to, or maybe even past, the end of its life. Getting my head up. That's just a picture of a parking lot, one of our parking lots that I took. At some point in time, all those pieces that are around those cracks are going to start coming up. When one comes up, for whatever reason, then Katie barred the door. They all do. Once that happens, you have to start with a bulldozer, tear it all out, start all over, which is way more expensive. We come into a parking lot like that now, like that, looks just like that right now. We can come in and overlay it with 2 inches of asphalt for about 15–20% of the cost of starting over. So obviously we're way ahead to do that, and that's something we've got some that we've got to do pretty quickly. I don't mean next week, but pretty quickly, or we're going to lose it. We're going to have big expense, or we're going to have gravel parking lots. Last item is roofs. You know, roofs don't last forever, just like anything in a building. We're not in bad shape at the moment, but we do have some roofs that are approaching the end of their life. And you know, when a commercial roof hits the end of its life, it just all of a sudden water's pouring through. It's not just a little drip in this corner or that. When they go, they go. If you haven't already re-roofed it, you've got to deal with it quickly, or you've got ruined inside of the building. We don't have any that need it quickly, not today, not this week, not this year. But I think it's prudent for us to plan ahead and have the wherewithal to attack some roofs when the time does come in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Again, there's a picture of a roof, and you can see, you know, it's not supposed to look like that. That's one that's getting pretty old. That's actually on the main center portion of the high school is where that picture was taken. So, how do we pay for all this? Obviously, that's always the $64 question. Here's just kind of, these are our best estimates on the cost of each facility. This was done based on figuring out how big they needed to be, sitting down with our architect, looking at the current cost of buildings. About $1.5 million for the Agri facility, about $5 million for the Student Activity Center, $1.5 million to expand this building. That's probably a high number. I don't think it'll cost us $500,000 to renovate the the doctor's office across the street into an early childhood center, but it will require some interior renovation to make it suitable. Parking lots, not all at once, not all in 1 month, but over a period of a year or two, about $1 million to repair the parking lots. That's the wrong slide. And about $500,000 for the roofs. Total of $10 million. We did not start out at $10 million and work backwards. That's just what it came up to. We can do this without a tax increase, which is the amazing thing of this whole project. We can do this and not ask people to pay a tax increase. We can actually reduce our voting publics, our communities' property taxes that support the school. How can we do that, you say? Several different things have all come together very nicely to make that possible. First one is interest rates are historically low. Interest rates have never been as low as they are. Right now, this week, they're even lower. Now, we're not basing this on what's going on this week or last week or next week. This is longer term than this. But interest rates are so low, it's almost not even a consideration that there is interest. It's so low. And of course, when you sell bonds, you lock that rate in for the life of the bond. It never changes on you, unless you want it to. The other thing that's been very advantageous to us, we've had really strong growth the last 2 or 3 years in our property assessment. The value that the county puts on all of our property, that people pay taxes based on the value of their property. Quite honestly, it's been surprisingly strong to me. It's up quite a bit, and it's been up, historically, we've been up $3 million, $3.5 million a year, something like that. It's considerably more than that the last 2 or 3 years, considerably more. That makes this all work better. And the last thing, of course, is just simply restructuring our payment schedule. That's common. People do that all the time. You do it with your house. People do it with commercial property all the time. We can do the exact same thing with bonds. It works exactly the same way. We haven't issued new bonds since the year 2000, 20 years. We paid all that way down, so we can just issue new bonds, spread it out. It all works together. We get actually 3 things out of it. Well, I'm skipping a slide. We can do all this. Our current millage is 43.4 mills. That's the school portion. Now, the city, the county, other places have a millage on top of our mills. But our millage right now, and it's been this for 20 years, it's 43.4. We can reduce it by 2 mills to 41.4. That's about a 5% reduction in our tax rate. So just it's 4 point something, 4.7, 4.8 reduction in our tax rate. While at the same time, we generate $10 million to do some projects that we need to do for the benefit of our children. I knew you'd be interested in where we stand with other schools, and you know, if we do this, ours would be 41.4, Van Buren would be 42.6, Fort Smith 42.058. I don't know why they're at such a weird number. Arkadelphia, I pulled some districts kind of like us or in our backyard. Arkadelphia 44.65, Siloam 45, Fayetteville 45.65, Farmington 42.6. We would be lower than all of these districts. Now, would we be the lowest in the state? Well, no, of course not. But we would be lower than a lot of districts, and a lot of districts that are around us or are a lot like us. Here is an idea of a time schedule to do all this. Now, this is not, you notice it says proposed. It's not anything, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. But next month at the April board meeting, if this is what the board decides that we want to go forward with this, to adopt the paperwork, the official, formal, legal documents proposing to do this. In June, put the matter before the voters to have the election as to whether or not we're going to do this. School districts can have 1 millage election per calendar year, but it can be any time during the calendar year. You don't have to have it normally, typically, you have it at the same time that you're electing school board members. That's the normal pattern. But there's nothing that requires that at all. The reason for doing it in June, if we wait till November
to have the election, we can't have the Agri building ready to move into in the fall of 2021. And I think that's pretty important that we try to do that we have that building built and ready to occupy. If we don't have the election until November, and of course we can't do anything, the election's got to be the first thing that happens. Then we can go to work in June. Probably start construction in September. That gives us a full year to build the building, and I think that's very doable. Then moving on down, right after we get that started, we would start the design work on the other buildings, begin construction of them this time next year. Be in the Agri building, as I say, August of 21. Be in the other things, including the activity center in this building, spring of 22. Deal with parking lots and renovating the annex, the doctor's office that summer. Might spill over into the next year. Paving might spill over into even to another year. Hopefully in the fall of 22, begin the preschool program and deal with roofs when we need to. Somewhere on down there, at an out date whenever we need to. It's all about looking to the future. We don't ever need to stop and stand still and not be trying to do what our students are going to need, not just today, but in the future. If we don't look to the future today, when the future gets here, we won't be ready for it. And that's true of anything. And that's what this is all about, is the district being prepared for some of your all's kids that are elementary kids right now that will not benefit from some of these facilities at the high school, but if we don't build them, they won't be there when your kids do get to that age. So that's it in a nutshell. It's, compared to our last building program, which was way bigger, way more square footage, way more money, this is a pretty simple, straightforward building program compared to what we did in the 06 to 09 time frame. We can do this really easily. I started saying a minute ago and I didn't say it. There's 3 big benefits to us for doing this. One, it lowers the tax burden on our patrons. I think that's a big deal. I think we owe that to them. We owe them, if we can do that for them, I think that is a big deal. Number 2, it gets us facilities that we need. Number 3, when you wrap this all together, our annual payment on bonds will be somewhat less than it is right now. So it frees up a little recurring cash that we can use for other things, just normal operational costs, whether that be additional positions, additional equipment, replacing computers, all those things that we do just in the normal course of running this operation. What I'd like to ask you all to do is think about this. As I said, I have all this information in writing for you, and I'll get it to you in a bit. I'd like for you to think about it. I'd like for you to talk to your friends and neighbors about it. I'd like for you to call me with any kind of question you have about it. If you want to come out, sit down and talk through things, I'm delighted to do that. If you have people ask you questions that we didn't cover and you don't know, ask them to call me or you call me. I'm never too busy for those kinds of things, you know that. Unless you tell me differently, I will have this prepared at the April meeting for your consideration. If you don't want to do it then, you certainly don't have to, but I will have it prepared for you to consider at that meeting if you're ready to do that. If you want to put it off, need more time to think about it and talk about it, that's certainly okay. But I will have it prepared so that if you are ready to consider it, then you'll have it. Obviously get it to you ahead of time like we always do. Any questions I can answer for you right now?
Will it go in as 2 questions on the ballot?
No, it'll all be one thing to vote on. It'll all be setting. One thing I did not say, the only way that a millage can be set, a school millage in Arkansas can be set, is by vote of the people. We can't lower it on our own. We can't raise it on our own. We can't change anything about it. Only the voters can. So they would be voting to set the millage rate at 41.4 and at the same time authorize the issuance of bonds. It would be one vote to do all of that.
When the annual bond payment's less, is there any idea of the expected length attached to that
what we're looking at is this, it's the same thing we have right now. I said a minute ago, we sold bonds in year 2000, and it was a 40-year bond issue. We're halfway through it, in 20 years. So we would be issuing new 40-year bonds. The new bonds would do two things: pay off the existing bonds and give us $10 billion to spend on buildings.
And increase the length 20 more years from where.
Well, from where we are today, yes,
Currently at.
but it would be the same as what we've had all along. Our current bond started out as 40 years, so it would be just doing that again. The very same thing we did previously, just doing that again.
Is there any way to calculate, I know rates are what they are when they sell, but is there any way to calculate what our total lifetime amount paid would be versus?
Well, of course, they give us, that's in an illustration. I don't have that in my hands, but sure, because they have to project all that. And of course, you know, we use Stevens Incorporated as our fiscal agent. They're not the only one in the state, but we've used them forever. And they do great work. And I will tell you, as you would expect, they estimate high. Always, anytime we're selling bonds in any shape, form, or fashion, what the rates turn out to be on the date of the sale is less than what they estimate. They don't want to, they look good when we're better off than they tell us we're going to be. They sure don't want us to be worse off than what they tell us they think it'll be. So they always estimate high. So if this is the Wooley version, if we do this sale in June, and of course shorter bonds have lower rates. The longer the money is tied up, the higher the rates get. Not by a lot, but there is some variation there. When you hear that a bond issue was 5%, 4%, 3%, whatever somebody says, that's taking all that and averaging it. And don't hold me to this because I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess that the average rate on these bonds will be 2.5 to 2 3/4, somewhere in that range, if we sell it in June. Now, if we could sell them today, it'd be under 2.
What are we at now?
About right around 3.5. I don't hold me to that either, but that's my best recollection.
I know we refied a big one last year, but the rest of them, do any of them start to pay down or pay off in the next 10 years that would free up money?
One of them does, but it's a little bit of an oddball thing. We've talked about this before. We have one bond issue, it's called a QSCAP. There was a program for a while, it doesn't exist anymore. This was from the recession in the late 2000s. Federal government program that they pay the interest. We pay it and then they reimburse us for the interest. Those bonds were limited to, I think, 17 years, and we sold those about 14, 15 years ago. I don't remember, I'd have to look it up.
They're paying the interest on that.
But yeah, they pay the interest on that, but that's the only one that, we're paying the principal, of course, but that one pays off. And that one we wouldn't be touching that one in this whole program. We wouldn't touch that at all, because it's about to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, we'll have to pay for the election since we wouldn't have it with anything else. Do you know what that
Well, the way that works anymore, see, when school elections were never with the general or primary, which is the way it was up until, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we always paid for it, because that's all that was on the ballot was the school election. When they moved it to either the primary or the fall, the November general election, now they prorate it. We still pay. We're going to pay no matter when it is. We pay. I can't tell you off the top of my head how they do that calculation, but they split it up between everything that's on the ballot.
Does that move the board member election to that date?
No, we don't have that option.
So you'd still have a third election, but you wouldn't pay any more for it?
Well, if we had, again, I can't tell you the formula how they do it.
Sure.
But it has to. It includes what's on the ballot. Pulling something out of the air as an example, if next fall the city of Mountainburg has 6 different questions on the ballot, And Alma, the city of Alma has one question on the ballot. And it also counts, it's factored in by the number of voters on each issue. All of that factors in as to who pays how much.
The city of Dyer and the city of Rudy had special election in August for annexations, and they each paid 5. But they had multiple polling places open. Mr. Woolley told me earlier today that we probably only have 1, so it'd be probably a little less than that.
Maybe Stevens would pay that for us.
They probably can, there's probably a law against it. Any hesitation on if we're 20 years away from paying everything off, of going on the hook for one bond in such a large amount?
No, not
Consolidating it for
not
40
at all.
years?
Not at all. You know, school bonds are fall into the category of what's called municipal bonds in the big bond world. They are so tightly regulated and controlled, especially after Dodd-Frank and the recession 12 years ago. This has never happened in the history of the state of Arkansas. It has literally never happened. But there is a state law that if a school district does not make their payment, the state does. Since that is a guarantee in law, that's why that's one of the things that factors into our rates. Bondholders know there's no chance of default. There's 0 chance of default. So, but you know, it doesn't matter whether it's one issue or 5 or 6 different issues at different times. The dollars all add up the same, and you know, it doesn't make any difference whether it's all in one issue or in separate issues, because it's all guaranteed, it's all tightly regulated.
It just doesn't limit us in 20 years from like what we're doing now.
No, just think about it this way. Let's say, now first of all, let me say this. When we built everything we built in the aughts, I don't know how to say that, in 06 to 08, we built for a school district of 4,000 students. The number of classrooms we built, the number of everything we built was based on a school district capacity of 4,000 students. And then, as you know, shortly after that, because of the recession, our growth kind of shut off for a while. Well, we have started back growing now, but we are only just now approaching being back to the biggest we were. So we're a long way from 4,000. We're a little under 3,300 right now. We're a decade or more from being full and out of room. Well, you've got a decade of, let's say it's 10 years from now, we need to build another school or add on at various places or whatever it might be. You've got 10 years worth of making payments. You've got 10 years worth of assessment growth. So selling more bonds for new construction without doing anything different except selling the bonds, no new taxes, no new nothing, is almost a gimme. It almost certainly would work out that way. Now, nobody can predict the future, and I'm not trying to, but it would almost certainly work out that way. If I was going to be here, which obviously I'm not, that's what I would be thinking. That's the way that would work out.
Okay. And then one last question. What does
Chapin, you don't ever have a last question.
I do. I wrote this down. Crabtree. What does Crabtree get used for now?
It is basically our freshman gym. Freshman everything happens in that gym.
Okay. I don't know what the size of it is, but is it something big enough? Just looking at that list, if there's one twice the, or half the amount. I don't know where it all structures in here, and obviously we get the most use, but I didn't know if Crabtree was something that could be whatever kind of surface goes in it for a floor. If it was
Well, Crabtree's got to be a basketball court. I mean, we use it heavily for basketball and volleyball all the time.
even with the two gyms.
We could not give up that wood floor in there.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Practices and everything.
Yeah. It's you remember when that was our only gym, and you say, well, we got a lot more gyms now. So how does that
That's
work?
exactly what you're reading my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had one gym for
It's
80
rarely
years.
empty.
But Carrie and I were talking about this the other day, how full our gyms all are. You may remember when you were playing basketball, we would have Little League basketball games at halftime of a senior high basketball game, because that's all we could do. And of course, that wasn't any good at all. Well, it might have even been before your time.
City League started approximately mid-February. Not one evening besides Wednesday has there been a free gym. I've seen the schedule. It's crazy. It's exciting because that's what they get used for. But you couldn't even get.
Well, it's always been my philosophy. In everything we do and everything
we think about building and do build. It's always been my philosophy. We're not building these buildings to sit there with the lights on. We're building them to be used. And, you know, we welcome, as long as it's an appropriate use, we welcome anybody, anytime to use our facilities, because that's what we built them for, is to be used. Well, I ask you again, please give this consideration. Think about, you know, what your questions are. Call me, come see me, and we'll have this conversation again a month from now.
All right, thank you. It was a good presentation. I think that puts us at executive session.
Okay?
So, Ms. Reed put 7:25 personnel.
And there is a provision in the law for voting remote. We'll go home, sleep a little bit.
7:50.
Yeah, I said, pour this out.
You got your care package.
Thank you.
Thank you, whoever
You
did
did
that.
that, James. Thank you.
It never is good the second time, though.
Okay, it's 7:50. Let's note that we're going out of personnel and that we're on new business, and that will take us to item 2, the recommendation of employment of Ernest Presley. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving his employment with a right-hand vote? Any opposed? That brings us to item 3, employment of the intermediate principal. And do I have a motion for that?
A motion we hire?
Is there a second? All in favor of that with a right-hand vote? Any opposed? I would entertain a motion.
One moment, please. If I may. I just want to say quickly, I know this was a long meeting, and I know we've got, covered a lot of very important things. I appreciate your time, your dedication, your interest. We've got interesting times ahead of us. I feel sure we will keep you all in the loop and informed of everything that's going on, probably more so than you want to know. And I say again, please do, please do give the facilities issue some thought, and let me know if you have any kind of thoughts, questions, suggestions, anything at all. I would love to hear from you.
Can we make it known in an announcement or the newsletter or something tomorrow that if somebody at home or immediate family has been sick, whether it's anything serious or not, but they're concerned about the kid bringing it to school, that they should keep their child at home if at all possible?
I will put that in what I'm gonna write, sure.
Yes.
I think include what you talked about, that anybody that's concerned about an immune compromised, either family member or student, that's also covered as well in your.
We will do that.
Yeah.
You know, you all know this, something that I feel very strongly about is, we're here for them. We're not here to make life difficult for them. We're here to help our families and children every way we can.
I sit through enough meetings to know that's great. Everybody here understands that, but it's sometimes.
Yeah, I know, we need to say it, yes, no question, no question.
I mean, headline it, because we don't need anybody bringing it to school.
Right.
For anybody else, teachers.
We'll
And
do.
on this facility, sorry.
No, you're fine.
That's the only thing too. I think we need to, not that we might not be out in the community much, but I think we need to figure out how people feel about that, and we've got the facts, and then.
And of course, well, let me say one more word on that, Madam President, if I may. In my experience, and what other school leaders tell me about their experiences, the thing that will almost guarantee a tax election not going the way you would like for it to is if the board is not truly, honestly in favor of it. So if you're not, if you decide you can't support this, please don't say you are, and please don't vote for it. And talk to me about it, of course, ahead of time. See if we can find. But if you're not gonna be for it and not gonna support it out with your friends and with other people, that'll kill it, even if you vote for it at the time.
So, it's really almost unheard of to lower taxes. I can see the question coming that, by lowering tax millage, are we putting ourselves in a bind down the road? Because we're not going to get it back.
And the short answer is absolutely not, because our millage is still going to be a really healthy millage. The honest truth is ours was high, and this is a chance for it not to be out at the extreme upper end. It'll still be a very healthy, good millage for us.
I think the projection that your debt service payments will decrease is,
Answers that question, yeah. It will put us in a great position. Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?